We're here for another Tennis Talk TV show with Florida Tennis Magazine. I'm Zach Shahan, and with me, as always, on our second show is Matt Pressman, publisher and owner of Florida Tennis Magazine. Matt, we're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to talk about Delray Beach Open, go through the draw a little bit with some really exciting matchups. We're going to talk about the Miami Open a little bit, and we're going to talk about actually our vision for the channel that's a lot different from a lot of YouTube tennis channels. So we're going to do some of the same stuff that other YouTube tennis channels do because it's fun, but we're also going to do something different that's, I think, adds a lot of value that people will appreciate. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but we're going to kick it off with Matt Pressman's exciting experience this weekend, opening up the Delray Beach Open. So Matt's got a really cool story to share, sort of amazing story to share.
Yeah,
I'm
number of
curious to hear you
stories.
talk about it, but this is like, I know you're a great tennis player. I know you have background as captain of a Division I college tennis team, but still, this was a little bit like, whoa, Matt,
It was great. This
Matt
is
got
crazy. Yeah.
raised up with this. This is awesome.
This
So
is it. So this was a crazy weekend for me because I was invited to attend the Legends Clinic here at the Delray Beach Open, which by the way, anybody can do the Legends Clinic. You can sign up for it. You have to pay a certain amount of money, you get in, and you get a chance to hit with legends like the Jensen brothers, the Bryan brothers, Tommy Haas, which was pretty amazing, Sam Querrey. And the Legends Clinic, they just sort of feed you balls. You play mostly doubles, and you just get a sense of, playing little games with these legends and getting a feel for what it's like to hit with them, which is definitely a amazing experience. And, my takeaway from hitting with these guys, mostly with the Bryan brothers, was just how smooth and silky their game is. And imagine playing doubles for a minute with one of the Bryan brothers or with one of the Jensen brothers, which is kind of the template that started the twins movement into playing doubles and becoming, the world's best. So yeah, so in any event, it was a pretty amazing experience. The Bryan brothers were really cool. The Jensen brothers were really cool. Tommy Haas was great. Sam Querrey mostly fed balls. I think he may have been a bit injured, so he was more kind of like hosting, but it was a pretty cool experience. So yeah.
yeah, and I mean, if you go to floridatennis.com and go to the news section, you can see there's a picture with you, Matt, standing like right in between the Bryan brothers, Tommy Haas,
Right.
uh, the Jensen brothers on the outside, Sam Querrey in there, and it's just like and Matt right in the middle, and it's like, oh my gosh, holy cow! And I mean, the Bryan brothers are legends. I mean, amazing, but they're not that long retired, so they're still, I mean,
Yeah,
still fresh enough that when you hit with
they're
them,
still
you
fresh,
must be
so
like,
so.
and same with Sam Querrey. He was playing not long ago. So
Yeah,
the level must still, they have a
is
very,
very high level. And so the funny thing about the picture is I'm about 6'1", and I look
yeah, yeah.
really, really short in that picture because everyone is taller than me, towering over me,
Honestly,
and they
I
all
couldn't
have tree
remember.
trunks for legs. The guys are in incredible shape. Um,
I know we've spent a lot of time together, but looking at the picture, I was like, wait, how tall is Matt? I was like, I thought he was about my height. I'm six,
you know,
almost, I'm 6.5, uh,
yeah,
between 6 and 6'1". And I was like, I thought Matt was about my height, but he looks so short here next to everybody else. I was like, is he shorter than me, or is everybody really that much taller? Like they were all giants. They're like, it's
they're
crazy.
all so
Oh my God,
so
look at
so.
little Matt.
Here's a crazy story. So I wound up hitting balls with these guys, and obviously, I playing some D1 tennis. They could see that I could play some balls, so they picked up the pace a little bit and served a little bigger with me. And it was a pretty cool experience. Mostly club players, but the folks that run the tournament, the Barons, Ivan and Adam specifically, are brothers also. Uh, Ivan gave me a call that night and said, "Hey, listen, somebody dropped out of the pro-am. Would you like to join the pro-am?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to." Now, in the meantime, keep in mind, my heel is killing me, right? So I had
Maybe
kind
just
of plantar fasciitis. Yeah,
yeah, and explain what that is, what the pro-am
plantar
is.
fasciitis. Yeah, plantar fasciitis is sort of like heel
Oh,
pain that
no,
you
no, no.
get.
I have, everybody knows. I mean, I don't know if I have the same.
Okay.
I mean, I explain what the pro-am is just to make sure.
Okay. So pro-am basically in some of these big tournaments, they have professional tennis players enter a round robin and their partner is an amateur. And again, this is another thing anybody can sign up for. And there was a mix of players that were there, from club players to some seasoned vets who played some college tennis, some promising juniors, and just fanboys, of the tennis scene. And you get a chance over about an hour period to play tiebreakers in a doubles format with these pros. So the crazy thing about this was these are all top doubles specialists. There's this guy Hugo Nice. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name right. But Hugo won 6 titles last year. He's 25 in the world in doubles. His ATP career high was number 12 in the world. And in any event, I knew I was going to get
It's
linked
from
up with him.
Indonesia, right? Is it Indonesia
I
or
think he's from Monaco, actually.
oh, Monaco? Oh, sorry.
Monaco. So
Misreading flags, probably.
this crazy thing is I start playing in the pro am and I'm winning pretty easily, and I get linked with Hugo. Now keep in mind he was a finalist at the Australian Open. He won the Italian Open, right? This guy's a serious doubles player. And so we ran through our opponents very quickly. And he was giving me some props. He said, listen, you can hit a pretty decent ball. And I said, listen, uh, we sheepishly asked them, would you want to hit some balls with me? Just because there's going to be a wait between our quick win and everybody else is sort of waiting to get done with their games. So Zach, I get out there, I hit some balls with them, and I enter the zone, and I'm hitting every ball. Didn't miss a single ball, right? In the meantime, he begins to pick up the pace and hit a bit heavier and deeper, and seeing how much I can handle.
Yeah, for
Now,
sure. He's like I mean, it's like when you're taking a lesson with a coach, right? They'll
right,
start at a low level and then go up
right,
to whatever level you're at. And you know how it is. There's is a pretty normal range of where decent rec players are, right? And then you
right,
go
right.
above it and you're like, oh, that's over. I'm sure with you, Matt, he kept raising the bar and being like, oh wow, oh.
This is like an interesting thing with players, right? It's sort of like if you just hit with somebody, you sort of begin to ramp up and ratchet up the pace, the depth, heavier top spin. You sort of see what the guy has when you're just rallying with him. And he was doing that, and knowing that he was doing that, I was so locked in, right? I was like, I cannot miss a ball right now, that I kept the ball in play. Now, admittedly, the difference is with a pro player at his level, every ball is a foot from the baseline, heavy, big top spin, and perfect. The sound coming off the racket is perfect, right? Everything is just spot on.
That's what it feels
Me,
like when I play with you, Matt. That's what
right,
I'm like, man, Matt hits every ball deep. It's heavy through the court. It's popping up
right.
high. Like, guys, this is unplayable.
So I'm like just keeping it play. I'm chipping the ball. I'm like, moving around to the corners a little bit. I'm, lobbing the ball up. So even me keeping the ball in play, it's still I look like an amateur versus a pro, if that makes any sense. But I did well enough for him to tell me afterwards, listen, I'm going to hit all out with you. I'm going to serve my regular serve, and I'm
Oh,
going to see if you can
wow.
handle it. Because he knows that at this point,
Holy moly. Like he said all
which to
out.
me was the
Like
most flattering
100%.
thing. Yeah, 100%. So
Oh
I don't
man.
know if
Matt.
so next game, I come up against him randomly. The round robin puts me up against him, and he starts telling everybody, "Oh, this guy's the real deal. He plays some D1 tennis. I'm gonna really play against him. I'm not gonna patty cake." You know what I mean? So sort of busted my chops, and he hit about 135-mile-per-hour serve, ace first, and then the next one I kind of bunted back and kind of got it in play, which it was impressed him a little bit, and then he just put the ball away. But anyway, it wound up being one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. So it was a really fun weekend,
Whoa.
hitting with legends, hitting with pro players who are like double specialists, in the top 20 in the world in doubles. So it made my Delray Beach Open experience this weekend just epic,
Holy
on every
moly.
level.
But was it really 135? Or
I
is
don't, it felt like that. I don't know what I'd have
but
to look it up to see what
I
it
was
really was,
I
but
was like, did
it
you look
felt like
at but
135.
but I mean
Probably a
those
better
doubles
fucking number.
players, they know how to
They
pound
serve
down.
big.
They pound down serves. Like this is
Yeah.
yeah, this is no joke on the serving. And um
And they hit their
Well,
spot.
so
They hit
at
their
this
spot.
point, it was you. Who was playing? It was because it wasn't just you
So
against him. It
there
was,
was eight different pros, and then there was about 8 to 10 other players who again ranged from like promising juniors to club players to
but you had
fan.
a, but you had a doubles partner playing
And
against them.
you're always matched up with a pro no matter what. So and then it's round robin. So whoever gets the most points wins. I did not win, but I did get a medal. I should have brought it here for the
But
show, but
I'm just
yeah,
trying. You had a
I was a
doubles
runner-up.
partner.
Yeah, yeah.
Who was
You get every you
who
get
was
a
your partner?
tiebreaker. It was each of the different eight pros. You rotate around and play eight different tiebreakers with each of the different pros. And the amateur with the most points wins, and then the next one gets a runner-up, and I wound up getting runner-up, which was pretty cool for me. I haven't had any hardware like a trophy or a medal since I was a
Yeah,
junior.
no,
So I was pretty
amazing.
psyched out. Like, this is pretty cool.
But I mean, when you played against Nice, you had a,
Monster. He's a monster. Yeah. I mean,
but you
this
had
guy.
a, but when you played against him, you had a doubles partner who was a pro.
and and my pro, I can't remember his name. I think
Oh,
he was
okay,
Columbia.
okay,
I don't remember all their names.
oh, okay.
Hugo's a big name in terms of doubles guys there, but all the guys are, top-notch doubles players, and they're all in the
Kelly?
tournament.
No.
Delray Beach Open.
Okay.
He was good. He was good.
Well, I mean, it's amazing, and I mean, yeah, to get the I don't know, Delian is Bolivian. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's crazy. That's amazing. I mean, it's like a dream for a tennis player. So I mean, that's the dream. I mean, of course, the dream would be like play Grand Slams, whatever. But like realistically, we all know we're not playing at Grand Slams. Like, I mean, you know that those days are over of dreaming of that for you as well. But to like play with these guys and
Yeah, I know.
see how you do, and then have the guy say, "Oh, I got to play full power against you because you're good." Like that's special.
That was so flattering. That was bigger than anything I think I've experienced in years. So, but the cool thing, I guess, for people thinking about coming to the Delray Beach Open, which is an amazing tournament, by the way, you can't get a bad seat. It's a really amazing draw. We're going to talk a little bit about it in a moment, but if you have the means to do it, signing up for the Legends Clinic or the Pro-Am is a once in a lifetime experience. At any
Um,
level you play, just to be able to play with these guys and feel their
Dude,
game, see the way they play, and hear the sound off their racket, and just
yeah,
get a sense of how good they are. Being on a
yeah,
court with a pro is different than watching a pro. Like, you really
yeah.
get to sense what they're like.
Oh,
So pretty amazing.
I believe it. I mean, it's yeah, I mean, I want to sign up for one of these. But I mean, not that, not with dreams of that kind of result. I know I would never touch that level, but just to do it, just to have fun. But I think everyone who's a big fan of tennis knows there it's very hard to capture. I mean, well, let's just say it in two ways. One, if you've ever watched matches on TV and then gone and watched live matches, you know this the speed and everything is
Right,
way different. And then
right.
the closer you can get to the court, the more you see it's like way different. Like we went to Delray Beach Open, it was like, wow, it's amazing. And then we went to the Sarasota Open and e- and like it was like, whoa, this is like more amazing, even though it was a challenger. It
Because it
felt
was so
like
close.
everything was harder and faster and more amazing because you're closer.
Right.
And there was one match, so I watched like Jack Sock from like eight seats up, and I watched
Yeah.
another match, Michael Moe and one of the Harrison brothers, I think, or maybe not, somebody, Michael Moe and somebody, from court level, like standing right next to the lines, the doubles lines, like right next to the court. And that looked like another universe compared to the Jack
Yeah.
Sock match, just because we were that much closer. Like, not that much closer, but it was close. There's such a dramatic difference. So anyone who's experienced that knows it's far different than it looks on TV. And then if you've ever played and recorded yourself, you also know the recording looks way slower. I mean, it's just a fact of how it is. Like the recordings always look far slower than real life. So
Yeah.
you know the experience of like seeing how it feels on the court and how it looks on the camera. So I think
Yeah. So
to actually experience hitting with a pro on a court like that is it's got to be something that you can't really imagine until you
I
do
mean,
it,
I
I
don't want to
assume.
overhype it, but like, as a tennis player, as a tennis fan, It was a once in a lifetime experience. It truly is
Yeah.
either the legends or the pros, the current, young guys that are coming up on the ATP tour,
Yeah.
hitting with these guys and just getting, even if they're hitting at 50, 60%, just how smooth their
Yeah.
game is, how unbelievably silky they are out there, their footwork, and just hearing the sound coming off the racket, things that you just nuances that you pick up when you're playing with them that just feel different. It's like
Yeah.
this is like the top of the food chain with tennis, and to be able to be on a court with these guys, is amazing. And then to your point, Zach, just circling back what you said about being close, again, it's worth it if you can do it to try to get really good seats at the Delray Beach Open. Because if you get the
Yeah.
closer you get, the more astounding the tennis viewing experiences, the more you hear everything, the more you see it all. And
Yes.
so, it's great to get great seats if you can, but
Now
either way, yeah, it's
there's a big
amazing.
difference. There's a big difference. And you know, unfortunately, you got to pay more for the better experience, but it's still it's if you have the opportunity, it's like it's a big difference.
Take it.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. We'll just briefly say, so aside from like covering tournaments and stuff, we're gonna do deep dives into individual players. So next video should be probably our first one. We're going to talk about Ben Shelton. So we're going to do deep dives into his history, his game style, his pros and cons, his stats, including that in his pros and cons, where he's changed in the past year, just a lot of different things. It's going to be sort of, we're going to try to make it like the best video on the player that you can find on YouTube. So
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
the
You
big
put a lot of
best
pressure
deep
on
dive, the best,
me.
what's that?
Yeah. I said you're putting a lot of pressure on
No
me, but I
pressure, no
don't know if
pressure.
I have. It's so funny because this weekend, just to give you an idea, like I went to the PTR conference up in Tampa for the Professional Tennis Registry, and I watched Johan Creek and Emilio Sanchez and Ivo Karlovic, and some of these guys speak on tennis, and like their understanding of the game is just immense.
Yeah.
But look, I'll try my best to give my view on Shelton. I mean, both you and I were really excited about this guy, and so much that we put him on the cover, the very first cover I did, at least associated with the magazine.
Yeah,
And
I was like, I had nothing to, I
no,
have
and
no
then
control over the
you
magazine. I'm a
influenced me a bit. So
little minnow.
yeah, no, but you will. So we'll have a fun time talking about that. But
Yeah.
I think at least in terms of Delray Beach Open, we're recording this right now on Monday.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do at least a little bit today was talk about a pretty impressive draw
Yeah.
and some big players that are coming to the tournament, and just give you sort of our take on what we see happening.
Yep.
And behind Zach, you can see two players, which are Tommy Paul and Francis Tiafoe. And if you lean over real quick, can you or
Yeah.
no? There's Taylor Fritz. Sorry, Taylor, that you're out of the
Yeah.
picture there. If you
Sorry,
ever watch
Taylor.
this video,
No,
Taylor's behind me. But yeah,
yeah, we I mean Tommy Paul is our family favorite. We love Tommy. Actually,
yeah,
at Delray Beach Open, my daughter, who was I think 5 at the time,
yeah,
got him to sign the ball. We were, trying to get the balls signed. Just we don't really do it with all players, but we're big fans of Tommy Paul. So we wanted to get the big yellow ball signed. And I was like, Tommy, Tommy, and of course he's on the other side, ignoring like this middle-aged man yelling at him. And I was like, Julia, you get yell Tommy. And she's like, Tommy, Tommy Paul, Tommy. And so he turns around and comes over and signs the ball. And he's cool. But I think if I had kept yelling and we hadn't got my daughter to yell for it, he'd probably just ignore it, be like, stay away from that guy. But no, we're big fans of Tommy Paul. Actually, I tweeted at him once, or I tweeted about him once, and he responded with someone was asking bold predictions for 2023, and it was like December 2022, and I said, Tommy Paul's going to get to a Grand Slam final, and Tommy responded to my tweet, "That's cool," or something with an emoji or something, or something like that. And he didn't quite, but he got to the semifinals of the Australian Open and lost to
yeah.
Djokovic. So it was pretty decent call. But we also love Tiafoe. So yeah, it's exciting. But I think the exciting thing about the draw is we did the video about who to watch at the Miami Open, where we both will be, and we'll do some
Yeah.
live coverage there. Who to watch at the Miami Open, and there are several
Based on
fun
based
match.
on what we saw at the Australian
Yeah,
Open, interestingly, yeah, which was a
yeah,
great
based on the
call. Yeah,
Australian Open, and there are several interesting draws or potential draws at Delray Beach from from that list. So the first one is it could be in the second round, Nuno Borges and Taylor Fritz.
Yeah.
So Borges was one of the guys we were watching. He's got a lucky loser to play, should win, and then he could play the reigning champ Taylor Fritz. What are you expecting from that match if they play?
I'm going to take the Taylor Fritz side of it and have to talk a little about Nuno Borges, because if you guys haven't read Zach's
Okay.
article about Miami Open hot players to watch, you should read it. And he gave a great kind of analysis of Nuno Borges. But I'll talk about Taylor a little bit. Look, Taylor Fritz gets a lot of heat, I think, from a lot of the tennis fans just because he could be a bit abrasive on the court. He's an intense guy. Uh, he gets irritated out there. He's a perfectionist. He expects only the best from himself, which a lot of players at that level, unfortunately, have that sort of unique tick. You even saw it from Djokovic in the early years, and still to this day, you see it with Djokovic. But I mean, I think Taylor's got that same thing. He's ultra competitive, can be a bit abrasive and difficult to watch when he gets sort of irritated out there. But this guy knows how to win. Taylor is very hungry on the court. If he smells blood in the water like a shark, he's going to go after it. And for me, the big moment watching him throughout his career, at least, was watching the Indian Wells match where he beat Nadal. That was just an incredible match. And after watching that, I feel like Taylor can beat anybody at any time. Winning the title here last year and becoming champion at the Delray Beach Open, he's a hard out for anybody, including Francis Tiafoe or Tommy Paul. I think he's got a good shot at winning this tournament. I think he's going to get by Borges pretty quickly, but I'm going to leave it to Zach to talk a little bit about what could happen if there's an upset. Yeah.
No, I'll start with Fritz. I mean, I think his level of competitiveness, his determination, and his winning spirit and his self-confidence
Yep.
make him a top 10, top 20 player instead of a top, 50 to 100 player. I think that's a difference. Like he's so strong in those, like anyone to be in the top 100, you have to be nuts competitively, right? You have to be competitive nut job to be in the top 100. But even within that group, like
In
this
the
is
top
one of
10.
Fritz's big strengths. Like he's above and beyond on on competitiveness, self-determination, self-confidence. I think it makes him always formidable against
Dangerous.
anyone except
Yeah.
perhaps Djokovic, where he can never beat him. But yeah, I think he's gonna win as well. But so a little background on Borges. So Borges played college tennis in the US. He's from Portugal. At the Australian Open, he beat Davidovich Fokina in 3 sets. Davidovich Fokina is no slouch. This guy is a very good player, obviously, from Spain. He beat him in 3 sets. He beat Dimitrov in 4 sets. Dimitrov was on fire for several months. Like he was not losing to anyone outside the top 10, pretty much. Like
Yeah.
he was just and he was like one of the players that everyone was saying even was slipping him into the discussion of someone who could possibly win the tournament. Like aside
Right.
from the big four, Djokovic, Sinner, Medvedev, and Alcaraz, there was maybe a little bit of potential support
Chatter.
for Dimitrov and Zverev. So to beat Dimitrov in 4 sets there,
No joke.
no joke. The
Yeah.
guy, so I saw him playing Medvedev. I didn't see the Dimitrov match, unfortunately. So I
Yeah.
saw him playing Medvedev, where he pushed Medvedev to four. Medvedev, who almost won the tournament, he pushed him to four, and he was out playing Medvedev. He was just better. He was amazing. He's got all these tools, but one of the things I loved about him was he's not this country club player. He would like just surprise. He would do one play after another, he would just surprise. He wouldn't do what you expect to see and wouldn't just win by being better, but by being clever. And when he had like opportunities like for a put away or something, he's not your typical guy who's gonna smash it and he was just like
Right.
he would do a touch shot that you like a clever little easier shot. Like he's very adept at doing an easier shot than you think you need to do or that most players do, and it being a winning shot. Like he's an exceptional level of clever. Like that's I think one of his great skills. But he's got like all the shots. He's a very skillful player, tremendous touch, great slice. So I think he's gonna give Fritz a challenge. I just think Fritz is like he's like a wall. He's so strong on the
Yeah.
baseline. He's so strong on the serve.
But
It's
it's cool
unfortunate.
to
I
run
wish
into a
Borges just had
match
an
like that
easier
so early.
second
Yeah.
one. But yeah.
I mean, that's amazing getting into if those two come up against each other so early in a draw, it's pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Borges, he has to push his way through. You know how it is. To get the better
yeah,
seedings and the better chances, you have to push your way up to the top. And then it's easier to get through the next tournaments. But as you're trying to push up, you're just constantly facing people like Fritz, and you're like, oh, how am I ever going to break through? So it's a big challenge he's under. But yeah, anyway. So we skip from him to I would go down to Manarino and potentially Giron. Giron was just in the finals of Dallas Open. He's playing a
against
wild
them.
card Nava in the first round. So you would
Yeah,
expect Giron to get through Nava and to play Manarino in the second round. And they just played in the semifinals in Dallas. And Manarino is looking great. Giron, I'll let you talk about it, but then I want to take a minute on Giron because he's playing like a different person right now.
yeah.
Like he started playing like a different person last year, and now he's really playing like a different person. If you watched him 2 years ago and this last tournament, you wouldn't recognize them as the same player, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Manarino, I wrote an article about on Florida Tennis. It's a fun read. I mean, Manarino is just such an incredibly fascinating player. We'll talk a little about him first, and we'll talk about Jerome. But Manarino to me is one of the most fun players to watch on the tour. Zach and I saw him last year, I think, at the Delray Beach Open, and I was going crazy over how exciting it was just seeing him. He's such an unusual player. He's just got this soft, kind of flat, lefty game that's just, he strings his racket at like 19
20,
pounds.
22
Yeah,
pounds,
22 pounds.
which
It's
like
insane.
the next up is like 35 or something, and that's insane. Like most are 45, 54.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I swing
22
around.
is not in the same universe. It's
It's just insane. I mean, I don't know any player, even club player or like club pro that strings a racket so low, but there's something unusual and quirky about Manarino's game that makes him a very difficult player to face. And look at Ben Shelton, who we'll talk about in our next show. Ben Shelton has came up against Manarino and Manarino took him out in five. So he could be, in my opinion, the coolest player to watch on tour because you're looking at a throwback of like a McEnroe era style, just this really beautiful finesse touch, unusual game that you just don't see in today's big, heavy topspin, you know, the kind of like brutal ball striking you see on the tour right now. You don't see somebody like a Manarino very often. And yet he's smart enough and hits the right angles and has the right finesse to be able to really take people out. So I can't wait to see him play here. I'm looking forward to it so much. So anyway, that's my
what
2 cents on Manarino.
one thing I want to ask you on Manarino, like, you have the experience and the repetition and the skill. Like, well, two things. So one, could you play like Manarino if you tried?
Well, yeah, I think my interesting thing that happened when I first started getting back into tennis was that my wrist got destroyed and I was having trouble playing, and so I went from a semi-Western grip to a continental grip and had to relearn the game by watching videos of guys like Ed Berg, who had a continental grip, last one, and McEnroe. Those are the two last big players in the played with a continental. Now, Manarino, I don't know if plays with a continental, but I had to learn more of a flat style of game for my forehands, especially. And yeah, you can learn it. It's hard though. I mean, in this day and age,
Like I'm not saying if I put you on the court with a pro, but
yeah,
if you were on the court with me, could you kind of
right.
try to replicate Manarino's style and kind of slap the ball around? Or I mean, maybe not me,
You
maybe
know,
a bigger hitter, because you have to have the dynamic of the other player playing like a certain normal style, right?
this is what I'll say about it is that in this day and age, and this is what makes Manarino so special. Why? With polyester strings, with the big topspin you can generate with the racket technology out today, putting shape on the ball, that like Brad Gilbert says, making sure you have a lot of clearance over in terms of the height of the ball over the net. Playing a safer game and with bigger topspin is just the way to go now. And so to see a guy who hits the ball as flat as he does with as much, finesse and angles and slice, and his game is just a throwback to another era. So the question is, why would you ever want to? Yet he's made an incredible career doing it. And he's a really tough out for a lot of people when they come up against him in the draw because it's such an unusually different game. And I will say this, Zach, when I play younger guys, because I have sort of a game kind of akin to what that looks like, but not nearly at that level. But all of us that are 50 plus sort of have a sort of a game that resembles that style. A lot of
The,
young
the
guys
Manarino
have
style.
trouble. Yeah, they have trouble with it. If you hit a flatter ball and you hit with more finesse and more slice and you chip and charge and you just do the things that you see Manarino doing that are just not sort of in vogue right now, it can be trouble for young players. And I think it's trouble
Yeah.
for a lot of players on the tour when they come up against them.
Or even older players who are just accustomed to the new ways, like yeah, chipping and charging and slicing drives some people nuts. That's what I learned to do. I don't know, that's what I like to do, and not nearly at the level, but it drives some players nuts, and they're like, they just want to hit deep, hard. Yeah, and anyway, so yeah,
Jerome,
I'm curious. We'll film you one day. We're gonna be like, do your best impression of Manarino right-handed,
I'll
and
try.
and
Yeah,
we'll see if we can how much you can replicate it. But yeah, just briefly on him. I mean, the crazy thing about him is he didn't have a great career, and then
right.
like last year won two titles out of his three career titles, I think it is. He um he's just been at another level the past couple of years. So he's really just come into him. He's late bloomer, 35 or something. But he's come into his game enough that he has that extra edge to win against so many players now. And it's just phenomenal to watch him. He's one of my favorite players to watch for sure, one of my favorite players in general. Um, and I was really excited because I thought, oh, I'm going to get a Manarino Tommy Paul final. This is going to be amazing. I almost texted you as the match was starting,
Right.
Manarino Giron. I was like, man, it's going to be a Manarino Tommy Paul final. It's going to be so exciting. And I mean, like, just to reiterate, he beat Wawrinka at Australian Open. He beat Munar. He beat Ben Shelton, and then he got wiped off the court by Djokovic, Djokovic was playing his best tennis, and Manarino was done. So it
Yeah.
just was not a match. But even then, the score is horrible. But Manarino played some amazing points in that match against Djokovic. Like, it was amazing tennis to watch, despite the score. Uh, so anyway, I love him. I watched the Giron match, and Giron is playing with a freedom and a looseness. Like, he was quite stiff a couple of years ago. If you watched him a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, he was a very stiff player. Like, you're a very stereotypical country club player or academy
I
player,
was I'd say he's a stereotypical
American.
D1 college,
Yeah.
style of like, aggressive, but just a classic sort of look that you see in D1 tennis, at least now. And I don't
Athletic.
think yeah, I don't think he adapted to the pro tour quickly. He needed some time, unlike a guy like Shelton that just, rocketed
Yeah.
out of nowhere. But I'm gonna hand it back to you in a sec. But one quick
No,
thing
no, go, go, go.
one quick thing I think is interesting is going back to this thing of the Americans are really coming for everyone right now. There's so many Americans in the top
Yeah.
100. They're really moving up the rankings quickly, and I think Jerome is practicing with these guys. And they got three right there. You got JJ Wolf, right? You got who's also going to be here, and I think, and they work out together. Apparently, they a lot of these guys work out together, and I think the level is just going up. And I think Jerome doesn't want to get left behind, just like probably JJ Wolf is probably thinking the same thing. And they're making harder pushes into these draws. And so I'm curious to see what he does at the Delray Beach Open. But yeah, this is a great player and he's
Yeah.
dangerous, man. To get
Well,
to the
yeah.
final of the Dallas Open, that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. And I think there's a kind of, if you're more physical, if you're more athletic, you can grind out on college scene. And I mean, he played UCLA,
Right.
a great college player, but he was so stiff and predictable on the court a couple
Yeah.
years ago. Like, I was
Yeah.
just like, he's a nice guy, but I was like, he's way too stiff and predictable. And he started getting more loose and trying to be more creative and more unpredictable and go for more shots last year. And there's a famous YouTuber, Carousel. He's from Brazil, but he went to UCLA with Giron or Giron, not sure how you pronounce it. So they were teammates, and he was a hitting partner for Osaka when she won a Grand Slam, and also was on the coaching team or hitting team, coaching slash hitting team with Giron for a while, a year or two ago. And so you had a little bit of insight into like how they were adapting to be more creative, to be more loose mentally. A lot of it was mental stuff,
Yeah.
like maturing mentally for matches. And then Carousel, who's been coaching and just hugely popular YouTube channel, he started going pro again. He's like he had retired. He couldn't quite make. He was like I think he topped out like um I think it was even at 350 or something was his top ATP ranking.
So
Maybe
incredible.
150, but I think it was 350. But anyway, so he sort of gave up on it and he got burned out and then started doing this stuff with like Osaka, Giron, and YouTube. And then he just decided, hey, I just want to play competitive again. So he started playing tournament, and now he's actually playing pro, trying to break into the pros again for the second time in his life, you know? So it's
Awesome.
fascinating. It's fun. It reminds me a little bit of you, Matt. I mean, he's younger, you
Oh,
know, so he's able to do it now, you know, but it's sort of like how you came back to it a couple years ago. But he's going through similar transitions, like being less blocky, less predictable, less automatic. And so that's what Giron's been working on. But he was just ripping the ball. He was
yeah.
absolutely ripping the ball against Manarino. And I was like, holy cow, Giron is getting to another level. He's another type of player now. Like he's a dangerous player. Before, you know, you put him up
Yeah.
against any top 50 guy, and you're like, okay, this guy should beat Giron.
I,
Now,
you know what it
anyone
is?
Giron goes up against, I'm going to be like, Giron's got a shot because he can play, and so he just ripped Manarino off the court, which shocked me. And then in the
Yeah.
final against Tommy Paul, it was a battle. It was a real battle. It was close. It was tight, and we all know Tommy Paul's level. I mean, so it's like Giron is probably he might have a surprise run or two this year that will put him on the map more. But
I agree. I think the terminology you reply is he's got robo strokes, right? He's like so
yes,
robotic out there. It's like robo strokes. And
but
you
he's
just
got
like
looser. He doesn't
but he
have them
got
all the.
it's that fluidity, that confidence that comes with moving up the ATP rankings and sort of getting freer with your game, more
Mhm.
confident, more swagger out there. You start taking more risks. And I think that's what we're seeing from Jerome. But yeah, no, it's gonna be fun to see him play. Um, now, so who do you think should we talk about Tiafoe or
Oh, and
Paul?
yeah, I will jump to another one. I just
Yeah,
it's gonna be fascinating to see who wins that match too,
I
because
know.
it's they just played each other. Manarino got upset by Giron. Um, I'm very curious to see if Manarino can get revenge or if Giron's gonna beat him again and be
Who are you gonna
like,
take? Who are you gonna
could be a
take?
big stepping stone for Giron if he beats him twice in a row. But I'm going for Manarino. I love Manarino. I like
Me
Giron
too.
too.
Me too.
But
And this
yeah,
is probably my own bias towards his game, but I'm gonna take Manarino. Yeah.
yeah, the next big one in the draw, we got two more here. We have Mickelson Kokkinakis, which I'm sure a lot of people are
Yeah.
there's a lot of Kokkinakis fans out there, and he's an amazing player. Um, I don't really know Mickelson well enough, but so if you want to talk about that match or the potentially second round match where Mickelson could play Tommy Paul or Kokkinakis could play Tommy Paul, I'd be fascinated to hear it. I watched a little bit of Mickelson versus Zverev, I think it was, in
Yeah.
Australia, and he's a really, from what I gathered and what I've heard before anyway, he's a very interesting player because he's this kind of player who just sort of Brooksby like he just knows how to win despite not looking like a I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about him, but
I
he
don't
got my
either.
interest real quick watching him. So
There was a really good article on ATPtour.com about Mickelson recently, and I got to read it. Everybody's been forwarding it to me. And I don't know enough about his game to really speak intelligently on it. Kokonakis, or however you pronounce his last name, was interesting because he came in as a qualifier in this one. And for those who know, he's Kyrgios's doubles partner. They won the Australian Open together as a doubles team. He played here last year in the main draw, I believe, and he's got a huge serve. He's got great volleys. He's just a towering, presence on the court. He's got a lot of swagger, just like a lot of these guys, sort of similar to Taylor Fritz, believes he can win, believes in himself. He's dangerous, and so he ran through the qualifiers just today. He got into the main draw, and so I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that first round. I don't know enough about Mickelson to speak on him because I've only seen clips of him. I haven't watched a match with him, so I'm going to leave that and
yeah,
just
so
say
neither of us we would definitely
Tanasi,
say
I'll go with.
It's going to be
He
someone
is
we're
good.
talking about in the future
Yeah,
because the little bit I've seen
without
of
a doubt.
him, I was like, this guy is actually the real, like he's someone to watch. So we'll talk. Kokkinakis, I mean, he had one of the most amazing matches I've ever seen. Him and Andy Murray, I think it was
Yeah,
Australian Open 1 or 2 years ago.
yeah, that was a great. Yeah,
Insane match, like totally insane match. Like the ending was just one of the most insane back and forths I've ever seen. So yeah, obviously very talented player. Yeah, he could run through the whole thing. I was surprised to see he had to go through qualifiers, but I guess
yeah, and I
he
will
didn't
say
play a
this.
lot last year.
This is an interesting thing. Like, you come in, you're now used to the courts, you played 1 or 2 rounds, and I think it was 2 rounds he played through the
Yeah,
qualifiers, if I'm not correct. And so you're loose,
yeah,
you're riding on a wave of winds. You're used to the courts, you're used to the weather, you've
the
been here for a
balls.
minute. You're used to the ball. You just you have a little bit of wind at your back, right? So that's always dangerous for an opponent when you realize that, hey, this guy got through the qualies, and this is not just someone who got through the qualies who's a no name. This guy can play some balls. So I think it's going to be a great first round match to watch.
No,
Um,
he's a player who could win it all for sure. And
yeah,
yeah, I
I,
mean
I
it's
I don't think he could win the whole tournament, but I think he could go deep in a tournament. I think the problem for either of these guys basically is running up against Tommy Paul, which is like
yeah,
running up a brick wall,
yeah,
right? I mean, this is his
yeah.
hometown. He lives in Boca Raton. He trains here in Delray Beach all the time and in Boca, and so he knows the weather. He just won the Dallas Open, and we could talk about Tommy for a while because I know it's your
Yeah,
favorite
we'll get
player.
to
But either of these guys are running into a
But
brick
no,
wall.
but
Is my
what you
point.
said,
Yeah,
I mean, qualifiers are dangerous. I mean,
very
and
dangerous.
if it's a real good qualifier who shouldn't really be a qualifier, I mean, extra so because they've gotten used to all the conditions and they're ready to roll. So
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I,
He's too
I
good to
will.
come through qual. But then Delray Beach Open, that's what makes it special too. All these guys trying to get court time ahead of Miami Open, so you get a really good
Yeah,
draw for like a sort of small tournament. It's an amazing tournament.
50. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, I think the qualifiers of these tournaments are often some of the best tennis, right? Because these guys is you eat what you kill, right? It's a very serious atmosphere for qualifiers. They're trying to make it. And a lot of these guys are super talented and they're just vicious on court. The tennis is unbelievable to watch in qualifiers. And I think it's a shame that a lot of people don't come out for qualifiers. So
Yeah.
and then they get this wind at their back, and that's why a lot of people are like, why are these upsets happen in the first round? It's because these qualifiers are hungry. They want it.
Yeah.
And they
Super,
want to break in. And this is
super
their chance to
hungry.
get ATP points. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I think getting used to the conditions, the court and the balls,
Yeah.
this is a
Is big.
big deal. You don't want to face a dangerous qualifier when you're not used to them and they are. Like it's just yeah. So I mean, Tommy Paul, absolutely love him. He's like no one else. He there was a who was Blair Henley, I think, was interviewing him after the match, and she said someone in the audience asked was like, "Is he always so cool and loose and like carefree?" And she asked him that, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like,
And he
his
is.
response is not
Apparently
like
he
this
is.
complicated. He's like, "Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's me." Like he's so cool. He's like the coolest cat. It goes through everything. How he serves, how he
Yeah.
hits forehands, how he runs around the court, how light he is on his feet, how he even falls. He's like
Right.
he falls in like a light, carefree, like like he's just he's like a really and it's so atypical for tennis players who are also OCD and so nuts and just like and
Yeah.
so
Myself
obsessed,
included. Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
self-critical. And he's special and everybody loves him. Like you hear commentators, you can tell commentators like are huge fans of his, even though they're trying to be objective. And there's like so many people. So, and he's got extreme talent, one of the quickest guys, one of the best court coverage, great serve, underrated serve, I think. So I mean, he's obviously one of the top potential winners, third seed. But yeah, we'll talk about him more as he goes
I'm
along.
gonna I'm gonna just say a few words on Tommy Paul. I'm gonna lead it off with this. I think he's gonna win this tournament. Uh,
Oh, look at
I
that.
think coming off the Dallas Open, although before I said I think it may be Taylor Fritz. I mean, after just hearing you speak and me thinking about it a little bit,
I'm afraid
uh,
Fritz will win.
I'm picking him. I'm picking Tommy Paul, hometown favorite in Boca Raton. And look, at the end of the day, the guy's fitness is insane. So don't take the looseness and the kind of surfer attitude he has, that kind of laid back vibe, for the fact that he does not work hard. This guy
Yeah.
works hard, from what I hear in the weight room, with cardio. His fitness is unbelievable, unparalleled in the entire tour. Even Alcaraz apparently just admires how tough he is in terms of his fitness on the court, and his movement, his footwork, etc. So, and that's why he's beaten Alcaraz, I think, twice. So it's like,
Yeah, twice.
uh,
Yeah,
in any
and at a high, like when Alcaraz
at a
was
high
good,
level.
not when
Yeah,
Alcaraz was a little kid. But I think he and Alcaraz and just a couple other Demon Hour, just a few players always get
yeah,
mentioned for that, their
yeah.
level of fitness and
And
quickness.
I'll say a few things just real quick, and then just to understand how good Tommy Paul is and what's his upside, right? Because we'll talk about this with Shelton, obviously. Tommy Paul was a rock star as a junior, right? He beat everybody. He was just running through everyone. And he's an immense talent. In fact, he has this kind of an issue that I think a few players have. They're so talented that they don't reach their potential because they've gotten by just on talent. And at a certain point, you need more than talent. You need the mental fortitude. And he has the fitness, right? That's already dialed in or locked in. But I think it's the mental fortitude and that kind of ability to focus throughout a 3 or 5 set match and not have these waves where you start to sort of drift a bit and go hazy in terms of your game. And so I think Tommy at times does that, and I think that's where he can get into trouble. But man, when he's locked in, look out. And so anyway, that I think he's going to win that. Whoever he comes up against, Mickelson or Kokkinakis, either one of those two. And I think he's going to go the whole way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
When he's locked in, I think he can compete with anyone. I mean, he had the Djokovic match was the only time he played Djokovic, and he played horribly. He was like really, he was not ready for the match. So it wasn't
yeah,
like it, but you could see what he could do against Alcaraz. Yeah, he's uh, one thing, like I think one of his big challenges is learning to be more creative and less predictable, because he falls into these he just goes in these patterns and sort of turns on autopilot, I feel like, often.
yeah,
And that sort of checks him out mentally a little bit sometimes, where then he'll just
yeah,
start missing a little bit too much, or it's just too predictable for the other guy, where they see the pattern, they feel the patterns, and they they then can adjust. So I think that's
yeah.
his challenge, and he's so good at them that he beats almost everybody with it. But and I know that's one thing his coach Brad Stein has worked with him on, is trying to. He said, you have a tennis player has to be like Picasso. Like you have to be creative.
Right.
Like this is something he's worked with Tommy Paul on, trying to make him more creative and unpredictable. And similar with Giron, like they have
Yep.
this kind of U.S.
Agreed.
system that needs to be broken up a little bit. Like they need to learn to be a little bit more like in soccer, you have the Brazilians and the beautiful game. Like
Right.
you have to learn to play outside the box a little bit. And I think he's getting better at it, but it's still like he just so easily gets into these patterns, and that can be, yeah,
Detrimental. I
can
agree.
be a weakness at times. So, and it's funny because he had only won one tournament before the Dallas Open. He won Stockholm a couple years ago, was his first tournament, ATP 250, and then he won Dallas Open, is the second tournament that he's ever
Yeah.
won, ATP 250 in Dallas. Normally, it's really hard to do well back to back in tournaments. Like if you made it to the finals of a tournament, you often don't do well the next tournament. But this being his hometown, him being a kind of player that probably thrives on that kind of momentum, that uplifting feeling, I hope he will win it, but I'm afraid Fritz is going to win it. But
Yeah, I know my heart wants Tommy Paul to win it, but my kind of like my brain thinks it might be Taylor Fritz. But
yeah,
we'll see.
we'll see. But
We got about five
it's
more minutes. I'm here at the Delray Beach Open actually right
yeah,
now. My
yeah. The
little
last
and stuff. So, but
yeah in the
to
press
jump
room,
in there. But I do want to touch a little bit on
we have the
what we.
last one more match too. We'll match up.
I think we should
There's
think through.
because it's
Yeah.
Shang, this guy
Oh yeah.
this
Yeah.
18-year-old who I met, who played Aqua. He got a set off Rublev. He beat Tiafoe at 18 years old in the Hong Kong tournament leading into the Australian Open. He was one of the top players I said to watch for Miami Open. Huge left serve, huge player, really athletic and inexperienced 18-year-old. He lives nearby. We met him at Whole Foods a couple months ago, and he lives at IMG Bradenton, plays for China. But really talented. He's going to be a top player.
Yeah,
I would
he
say
is talented.
easily top 20, could be end up a top 10 player at some point, but he's so young. So he's inexperienced, but he's going to be a firepower flair player to watch. And he
Yep.
could play Tiafoe in the second round. So just say we don't have to talk about it, but watch out for that match because that will be a fun match if it happens. If he
I'll,
gets
I'll
through the first round.
I'll take the other side of it, which with Tiafoe, because Tiafoe's always just like, a super dangerous player to come up against. Just look at, I mean, look at behind the Zach, you got these three Americans. It's so exciting, to see these guys, right? So Tiafoe, big foe, right? You got I think I think Tiafoe lost a little confidence with the Shelton loss at the US Open. He hasn't quite hit his stride since then. He's just sort of been a little bit rickety in terms of his game. He has a lot of hitches in his game. He's an immense talent. He's a very talented player. But I think he's a guy that needs that confidence. And I don't think it's quite there yet, but he's hungry. He wants to, and I think this draw is an interesting one for him because there's so many Americans in it at a high level, including Giron, who's trying to make a play. Uh, and JJ Wolf, I think, who's in the draw as well. So it's been interesting to watch who comes up here. But I think Tiafoe, I think he'll go a bit in this tournament, but the question is, where is his confidence? If he looks confident, I think he's dangerous. If he looks like he's still sort of a little bit uneasy about his gameplay, I think it may be a quick out for him. We'll see. And
Yeah.
Shang could be the guy, by the way. He could
Yeah,
be
it's
the guy to
interesting
take
what
him
you
on.
say because he's been really struggling and it's been hard to
Yeah,
watch. I've been really feeling for him because we love him, and I
yeah.
hadn't really connected the dots that it goes back to that loss to Shelton
I
where
think that's the genesis of it all. I think that loss was a hard hitting loss. Shelton again, hungry player,
yeah,
get
it's
move
hard
up the rankings.
it's
Yeah,
hard for these mid 20 guys when someone 18, 19, 20 beats them because
yeah,
then you have the feeling like has my window closed? Did I miss my opportunity? Is this
right.
the end? I mean, it's ridiculous, but I'm sure these are the thoughts that. And I mean, Tiafoe, yeah, like you said, such a confidence player. He's really struggling right now. So I hope he
I think
gets through and
yeah.
plays Tommy Paul, and then Tommy Paul wins. But but I would love either of them to win to go through. But or Shang, I love So anyway, but yeah, that's our highlights. Four highlight matches of the first two rounds. Hopefully,
Yep.
was there something else you wanted to close on or talk about?
No, no, no. I just want to thank Zach for getting me on here on YouTube and doing some tennis talk, and looking forward to seeing him at the Miami Open in person. Hopefully, we're going to do a show in person, which would be pretty cool.
Okay.
And yeah, looking forward to seeing how this Delray Beach Open unfolds. It's pretty awesome being here. There's some amazing players. This is a really cool draw to see, and especially
Yeah.
for the Americans. So I'm excited.
I
I'm
wish
amped about it.
I wish I was going to Delray Beach now. We wanted to go to Miami Open for years, so
Get to
we
pick
finally
one.
got tickets. And now I'm looking at the Delray Beach draw, and I know how much closer you get. And I was like, man, why don't we just go to Delray Beach? It's a better. But we're gonna experience Miami Open, have fun. Couldn't do two this year. Maybe next year if we do. If we
My
do.
goal is to get Zach just to move to the East Coast, man. Just to
Yeah.
get to this side of the world, man. The
Oh
West Coast
man.
of Florida is cool, but the East Coast is
Uh,
is pretty cool too. So
oh my gosh. Well, thanks a lot,
awesome.
Matt. I think it's a super fun show. I hope so. We're just give us a like, subscribe, and
Yep.
read more at floridatennis.com.
You got it. Sounds good.